What is up, everyone, and welcome back. It's late October. The tour is coming up in less than 2 months, and we're going to take another look at Duran Gray's U.S. tour, the This Way to Self-Destruction tour, for a couple of reasons. One, I'm certainly excited to see them. Two, it was pointed out by several people that it was quote-unquote unfair the way I had a bunch of negative things to say about the Gazette's World Tour as opposed to Duran Gray's. So I'm going to do a good, the bad, and the ugly like I did before with this tour. We're going to take a look at it. And truly, to be quite honest, I do feel that this tour is put together much better. Whoever booked this has a better idea than the promotions company that booked the Gazette tour. From a logistics standpoint, from a travel standpoint, and from a standpoint of getting across the country. Now, I do think that there are some issues with it, and I'm going to discuss those as well, because I think one of them certainly is ugly. First, I love the idea that they're going via bus as opposed to via plane. It's cheaper. It's cheaper overall, and it's easier to connect a route. So if you're going to spend a little bit longer, you want to make more money, you want to keep ticket prices to a manageable and more reflective of the market you are touring in standpoint, taking a bus versus taking a plane is a better idea. Another one is I feel like when the tour was announced in August, it's a bit easier on the wallet as opposed to announcing a tour right after the US holidays in December, where quite frankly people are wiped out from the holidays, from the travel, from the gift giving, from all the stuff that comes with that. Yes, they are going to be in that time frame, but the time that you need to purchase your tickets, book your hotels, possibly look at flights and travel and food and that kind of stuff, it's going to be a little easier to budget for that in July or August than it is to have a lot of that available at the end of December, the beginning of January, where the majority of families in the US, because of the holiday season, are going to be a bit tighter because they've just spent that money. So the other thing with that is in the US market, if you're not a humongous band, the $30 to $40 range before Ticketmaster, which, and by the way, Ticketmaster is going to gouge you every single time if you're paying for a tour like this. A $50 ticket, a $53 ticket, plus your $12 handling fee from Ticketmaster makes that ticket jump up to $65. Duran Gray's, I think the two tickets that I paid for hit me for $92, which is far more reasonable in this market for the size of the band, for the size of venues being played. And it's just a fact. It's how the US market works. We do get a lot of tours over here from many different bands of all levels, artists of all levels, and it's more competitive. $53 for a single band show just isn't as much. It's not being rude, it's being honest and being somebody who's booked and promoted in the US and understands the business aspects of it. I do really like that they're going across the central part of the United States, one line all the way across the country. And you can tell that they worked out getting to New York really well. making some good stops in that part of the U.S. Two dates in California, the Los Angeles Sacramento date are very smart. And you notice that it's 2 days from Sacramento to Denver. One of the big reasons for that is if you're only utilizing one driver, or I should back that up a little bit. In the US, on a commercial bus, each driver can only drive for 8 hours. I believe it's 8. So more than 8 hours, you have to swap drivers. They're probably not swapping drivers. So you're going to have a couple of days in between some of these stops. You look at Sacramento to Denver is 2 days. Denver to Chicago is 2 days. Chicago and Cleveland are close enough that it can be done. I am surprised that there's a date in between Cleveland and New York for a day off. That's actually a bit more surprising than I expected, because you could do Cleveland to New York City in a day, or if you really wanted, you could have done Cleveland and set up a Pennsylvania date and then hit on the 12th and then hit New York City. One of the big ugly that I have here with the entire tour is the fact that there is a single U.S. date, and that's in New York. And on top of the fact that it's only a single U.S. date, it's at a tiny little club. It's roughly 526 or something. It's not even 1,000 capacity. So I don't know how that worked. I don't know why that worked out the way it did. There could have been booking constraints. There could have been just promoters that didn't want to book. But only having one date on the East Coast, only having it at a 500 capacity club is just a bad call, because there's far more people in that area from all up and down the East Coast that were going to want tickets, and those tickets for that particular show were gone in less than 4 hours. I think they were gone in 3. And unfortunately, I think a lot of those probably are going to wind up on the secondary market being scalped for ridiculous prices. Also, talking about tickets, the VIP prices are more reasonable. However, that being said, the Duran Gray VIP compared to the Gazette or even other VIP packages offered by other bands are not as good as it is with other bands. So you don't get as much out of it. I looked at the idea, but having kind of a rough meet and greet where you're just going to get a picture taken with like 5 other people wasn't worth it. I'm not a huge meet and greet fan to begin with. I'm not a huge I need to meet the band fan. I've met plenty of people in my life, met plenty of famous people in my life, plenty of bands in my life. And while some people are diehard about it and want to pay for that, I don't. If I'm going to, it's going to be for a band like Alter Bridge, who do a really amazing job with their meet and greets and really invest a lot of time into their fans. So definitely rather a more familial atmosphere with the way those guys do it, as opposed to kind of a handshake factory meet and greet of a lot of the others. I still don't necessarily agree with the practice, but it does make the band more money, and it is certainly something that a lot of bands require to thrive on these days, because record sales aren't going to make you money. You're going to make more off of touring and merch and stuff like VIP sales. So the New York date is definitely where it was, and the fact that there's only one is a real sticking point. And that's kind of the bad and the ugly. Is because the only other 2 dates in the US are Dallas and Houston. I'm sad that there's not a Canadian date, but it is tough to work that in going up, especially in December. But even going through Denver, Chicago, Cleveland, and New York, you're going to be facing snow and inclement weather in those conditions. So that is disappointing that they didn't make it to Canada at all. And I do wish that they would have been able to stretch things out a little to get a show somewhere else, either on the East Coast or in a place like Tennessee, as opposed to the next closest being Dallas. Now, I've never driven from New York to Dallas, but I have personally driven from Northern Virginia, from the DC area to Dallas, and I can tell you that that is over a 20-hour drive. So it looks like they're probably factoring in 32 hours, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less for that. And that's the right idea, but I do wish they could have worked more in. It's going to be interesting to see how they work their gear. From what several of you have said, they tend, both guitar players tend to have really small fly rigs, meaning they don't bring a lot that they fly with. They're probably going to rent. They're probably going to bring their favorite pedals, and they'll probably rent the rest. When they get over to the States, they'll probably rent a drum kit in the States, unless Shinya absolutely positively has to have his kit. But my guess is they'll bring a couple of guitars each, bring a couple of basses each with the different tunings and stuff they use. They're probably going to have 3 to 4, if maybe 5. It seems like Kodu is really into making things sound right. So you're probably going to have at least one acoustic instead of just using a clean tone for some of those acoustic bits. Toshi Azuzi is probably going to have 2, maybe 3 basses. And, well, Kyo can just be Kyo and bring his favorite mics and possibly a mic stand. I'm not sure. They'll probably do some of the digital stuff they do with the screens behind them. And it seems there's not as much. And of course, merch will probably be a little lighter. But all that stuff is much easier to pack on buses than it is to pack on a plane and get there. And you can and if you do need to travel with more people, it's cheaper to do it on a bus because buses are cheaper. So I think it was better put together in certain ways. I do like the fact that they are hitting more places. I do think that some of the venues needed to be bigger. That said, it does give them a better, by playing smaller venues, it does reduce the risk of the band not selling out. And there are some pretty big competing tours going on in the US in December. Make no mistake about that. Trans-Siberian Orchestra tours the US every year during the Christmas season. Matter of fact, they run 2 tours concurrently, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, so they can hit everything. And it's difficult to compete with those guys. And there's a lot of the audience that listens to Duran Gray that's probably TSO fans. I am. Granted, I'm also a Sabotage fan, a big one, and that's where TSO came from, was Sabotage. So just looking at it, the tour was booked better. The people that did it have a better idea of how to do it. And they're probably going to have a bit more overall success because things are planned out. You don't have as high of a guarantee that you have to worry about hitting. So ticket prices don't have to be as high because your travel costs aren't as high. And there's also part of that arrogance that happens of, well, we're big in Japan. And that's great if you're in Japan, but it doesn't really work in other places. You can't go, well, we're big in Japan, so we should be really big here too. There's a lot of US bands that are really big in Japan that sell out, or really big in Europe that sell out, but do not draw as well and do not do as well in the US. You always, always, always have to book and have to be realistic about your market. So it's an unfortunate thing, but the US crowds can be really fickle. I hate to say it, but it's so true. I've seen it time and time again, booking shows that you thought were going to do well, and they don't. And I do really think that these guys here with Duran Gray and their management and their booking have done a better job. So my hat goes off to them. I am looking forward to it. I hope this balances things out as far as my critiques go. It is what it is. I just think that this one's put together a bit better, and I feel like people did their homework more. So I cannot wait to see all of you guys that are going to be in Houston out there. I'm really looking forward to meeting several of you that I know are going to be there. Looking forward to getting some footage with you guys and sharing an amazing experience. I'm really curious. It's going to be hard not to look at the set list. Well, I probably will. I probably might just cheat and figure out what they're playing. We'll see. We'll see. From what I understand from several of you, these guys do change back and forth. Like they'll pull a song or two in. Hopefully, there's no debacles like there was in England earlier this year. Fingers crossed. Though if it did happen, it probably wouldn't hurt my feelings just to sit there and watch them organize on the fly and try to pull out the best set they possibly could with what they have available. Because they do use backing tracks to get stuff done. And it's completely understandable. A lot of bands out there even play the clicks these days to make it sound the best they can. So, I'll see so many of you out there. Looking forward to it. Let me know what you think. I always appreciate your time, your feedback, and you being here. I love you guys. Thank you to my law enforcement, military, veterans, and first responders, which you do every single day. As always, you have been awesome. I have been Baldman. I'll see you in the next one. Be excellent to each other and keep